So then I want to welcome everyone to this Sabbath meeting with Brother Lynnford. And you are going to talk with us about this flat new earth thing. And it
Yes.
has really been kind of, what shall we call it? So many people have started to, really think about this subject. So what did bring you into thinking about and study this subject?
Well, the first time I heard it, I didn't consider it very much, but I thought it was interesting. I like I like science. I like the looking at the stars and so on, and the path of things that are going on. But what really started it was a friend of mine that was local in our fellowship was getting into it and promoting it. Like on our Bible studies while we're doing presentations, he'd talk about it a lot. And so I felt the need to investigate. So I actually have spent probably far too many hours investigating it, but I have looked into it a lot. Our dear Father in heaven, we come before you. Thank you so much for all you do in our lives. Thank you for the wonderful gift of your Son, who you sent to die for our sins and also to live in our hearts. We appreciate this opportunity to investigate, open your word, and look at your creation. You have done amazing. So thank you for all you do. Please help us understand the things we look at and help them to bless us in our daily lives. We want to be more like Jesus. So thank you for what you're doing in us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. So I want to start in Deuteronomy 29:29. So the Bible says, the secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. That's a really important verse to recognize. God revealed a bunch of things to us, but there's a bunch of things he didn't reveal. And the things that he did reveal are what is important. And I do view this topic of the flat versus globe Earth as a pretty minor detail, and the Bible doesn't go into great explanation on this point. I don't think it's not a scientific book that's trying to explain the position of the world or the condition of the world necessarily. It's mainly about how we can know God and have salvation. And I don't see the flat Earth as one of those things, flat versus globe Earth, as a salvational issue. And so when I do look at things like this, or other concepts that don't really matter to our salvation, I generally don't take a whole lot of time investigating it, unless I see there's a need. So, for example, this particular topic came up in our study, and there was a man that was pushing it pretty hard, and I just felt that I had to need to investigate it a bit. So I spent a lot of time looking at videos, checking into the flat versus round Earth, looking at all the arguments. I've probably investigated pretty much every argument there is. I'm sure there's others that I haven't, but I like to look at both sides. And I think that's important whenever you're looking at a topic, to investigate both sides, not just one side, and also understand that there are secret things that belong to the Lord. We don't need to even know those things. Um, but anyway, in my investigation, so this is a globe. This is a ball globe. Do I have it upside down? I don't know. I took this globe and I split it up. I cut it up and turned it into this. I don't know if you can see that very well.
Yeah, we can see it. Mhm.
I guess I should stop the share. It'd make it a lot easier to see. Okay, so now can you see that?
Yep.
So this is what I did with the globe. I just flattened it out. I took that map and flattened it out. One thing you'd notice is, look at Australia. This is Australia right here. See how it's split up? When you take the map and you flatten it out, things get distorted. There's a whole bunch of missing space that isn't accounted for on a flat Earth. So, for example, here's a globe,
Mhm.
and if you notice, here is the United States. It's backwards on my map or on my camera, and here's Australia. You notice they're actually pretty close to the same size as far as width across, but and they cover, the United States covers 4 time zones, and Australia covers 3 time zones. So we'll get into time zones in a little bit. That's one of the main things I wanted to share because it's something that I haven't seen shared anywhere. I have, like I said, watched many hours of videos on both sides of this issue, and I haven't seen anybody discuss the time zones, which to the detail that I'm going to share them with you today. So I think you'll find that quite interesting. But I did want to cover a little bit with the Bible first. So John 3:11, it says, "We speak that we do know, and we testify that we have seen." One thing is really important is that we speak things that we know. A lot of times people talk about things they don't know, and that's not a good idea to speak about things you don't know. You should only speak about those things that you know. There's a This is a Bible verse that is often used to support the flat Earth theory. Is First Chronicles 16:30. It says, "Fear before him all the earth; the world also shall be stable, that it be not moved." And so the idea presented is that the earth is stable and never moves. It doesn't go from one place to another or rotate or do anything else. It doesn't move. And there's a couple other verses similar to this, but look at this verse. This is in Psalm 16, verse 8. Here it says, "I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, I shall not be moved." Now, in Hebrew, this is the exact same Hebrew word, and it's the exact same form of Hebrew words. So there's no difference at all when you're looking at this in Hebrew, versus the earth and David. David was writing this. When he says he's not going to be moved, what is that? What is he talking about? Does that mean he never raises his hand or spins around or walks? Obviously not, right? He moved all the time, but the moving, what he in for David's case, of course, he's talking about his um, the Lord is with him, and nothing's going to change that status. And so when it says the earth shall not be moved, what I understand, it's not going to be removed. It's not going to go somewhere else, disappear. Job 26:7 is interesting. It says, "He stretches out the north over the empty place and hangeth the earth upon nothing." So according to the Bible here, the earth is hanging on nothing. There's nothing supporting it. There's nothing hanging on it. I believe it's a ball, a globe. And here's a verse. It says in Isaiah 40:22, "It is he that sits upon the circle of the earth." Now, I understand a circle is something that's round, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a ball, although it could be. Interestingly, this very same word is used in Proverbs 8:27. This is a verse that most of us should be familiar with. Proverbs 8 is a description of Christ when he came forth, just brought forth from the Father. Anyway, in verse 27 of this chapter, it says, "When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth." Anyway, the word compass is the same as circle. That word isn't used very often in the Bible, like 3 times or something. But this is one place. He put a compass upon the face of the depth. Um, And then the next verse says, when he gave to the sea his decree that the water should not pass his commandment. So that I always think of that when I go to the ocean and I see the waters, big waves, and they come and they stop right there. And they just, I know that there's certain situations where, like in a tsunami or whatever, they go beyond that border. But for the most part, they always stop right there. It's pretty impressive. But anyway, so there's something that's holding the earth together, the waters where they are, and it's called here a compass or circle. So I did want to explain something. There's a whole bunch of Bible verses. Well, some people have claimed like 200 Bible verses that supposedly prove the flat Earth. Um, I just when somebody says something is proven in the Bible and it conflicts with my daily observation, I have to take that. I have to really examine those verses. Like we looked at the verses already about um, the earth not being moved. That's one of them, or the ends of the earth. The Bible says that God sends his people or gathers his people from the ends of the earth. And I believe that's talking about just all locations of the earth rather than from the edge where they're about to fall off. Um, so, this study that we're looking at right now, we're not going to go into great detail in the Bible, nor in a lot of other areas of the flat versus round earth controversy. I'm just going to be mainly sharing some new things that I have never seen anywhere anybody explain that I think you'll find quite interesting. Um, anyway, but going back to these supposed 200 verses that prove the flat Earth, another friend of mine, he said he's got 200 verses that contradict each other or something. So we went over them. We started going over each one and found they're not saying at all what this gentleman was claiming the verses say. And they said, "Oh, let's go to the next one." So we went to the next one, and as we were going through this list of, I think it was around 200 verses, each one was glaringly obvious. They weren't saying what he claimed they were saying. And I say the same thing as with the flat versus round Earth. I don't think the Bible is plain on that at all. Um, Anyway, I wanted to share something interesting though. Look at this verse, Genesis 5:3. It says, Adam lived 130 years, and he begat a son in his own likeness after his image, and called his name Seth. So the Strong's number for that is 3205. It says that Adam begat a son. Now, there's a bunch of verses. Abraham begat Isaac, Isaac begat Jacob. There's a whole lineage. You can see it in Matthew or in the Old Testament as well, and in Genesis and other places. There's a lot of begats where men begat so and so. Abraham begat Isaac, Isaac begat Jacob. Anyway, in Hebrew, the main word for that is strong number 3205. Now, watch this though. This is Genesis 3:16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception in sorrow. Thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. That is the exact same Hebrew word, 3205, to beget. It says that Eve would bring forth children. Eve would beget children. Well, we just read that Adam begat children. Eve begat children. There's a bunch of verses that say that women beget and uses the same word as well as men. Now, if I gathered all these verses together and tried to prove to you that men can have babies, what would you think? It'd be pretty odd, right? We
Not
know in
true.
we know in observation, of real life, we can tell pretty much even a child knows that, well, maybe not too many children, but it's obvious that men cannot bring forth children. Literally, can't begat children. The way Adam begat children was to be together with Eve, and that allowed that to happen. But the baby actually came forth from Eve, and that's the way women are the ones who bring forth children, beget children. Even though I might have 100 Bible verses that say men beget. But that doesn't change reality, right? That it's obvious that men don't bring forth children literally. So therefore, we can't make an argument. It'd be a really weak argument to try to prove that men can have babies, even though I might have 100 Bible verses for it. It's just you're trying to teach something that doesn't make sense. It conflicts with our daily observed reality, so you're wasting time. Anyway, that's the way I see it with flat Earth Bible verses that are used to support the flat Earth. Yet you can see outside every day. You got the sunset and the sunrise, and the path of the sun. These are things that don't work on a flat Earth. There's a whole bunch of things that don't work at all on a flat Earth, but I wanted to share here, just as far as a sunset and a sunrise, that never happens on a flat Earth with the flat Earth model. What they claim is that the sun, instead of setting over the horizon, going over the horizon, it disappears. It goes beyond your visible sight, so now you can't see it anymore because it went too far away. But think about that. Most of us are in the northern hemisphere, north of the equator, and we can see the North Star, right? Most of us can. Now, if you're in the southern hemisphere, you can see the Southern Cross. Southern Cross is a collection of stars that operate similar to the North Star. Although with the North Star, you don't see it rotating. The star is just one star by itself. With the Southern Cross, you would actually see it rotating every night. Um, but anyway, the point is, we can see the North Star, and the North Star is visible on at least half of the Earth can see the North Star, and it disappears in the daytime and reappears at night, and it's always at a certain elevation depending on where you are. Like where I am, it's around 34 degrees above the horizon. Where you guys in Norway, I think it might be a little bit further up than that, maybe 45 degrees. I don't really know exactly where Norway is, but regardless of where it is in your site, when night when daytime comes, it disappears. You can't see it anymore. Not because it went too far away, right? It didn't go so far away you can't see it anymore. What happened is the sun came up and it's so bright that you can't see the stars anymore. But the North Star does not disappear over the horizon. Correct? You understand that? The North Star, you never see the North Star going down and disappearing over the horizon. That doesn't happen. Although almost every other star, the sun and the moon, they do disappear over the horizon. But the North Star doesn't. It stays right there. It's up at a certain place and it's fixed in that location, and it never moves from there. So the idea that the sun just goes so far away that it disappears because you can't see that far anymore, that doesn't make sense. If the sun is actually staying up in the sky all the way around, you could see it just as easy as you could see the North Star. And then, of course, you could see it all the time. Now, some flat Earth concepts, they claim there's a shade, like a light shade, covering half of the sun, so that when it's out of your visibility, it's the shade is covering your sight from it, but it's still lighting up another part of the flat Earth. Anyway, the reality is with the flat Earth concept, there can't be a sunrise or a sunset or a sun going up or sun going down. They claim that it's actually staying at the same height, but it's rotating in a circle above your head. Now, that circle, interestingly, it starts out, or part of the year it's small, so it's going around your head in a small circle, and then as the year progresses, it actually gets larger. The circle gets bigger, and it goes around in a bigger location. Now, the odd thing is, it still takes the same amount of time, 24 hours, to make that spin, that rotation. It goes around it's from one place to the other, going back to the same point. It takes 24 hours. And so if it's going around a smaller circle part of the year and a bigger circle at another part of the year, then it's moving a lot more distance when it's going around the bigger circle. But it's takes the same amount of time to do it. So it would have to go faster. On a flat Earth, the sun would have to speed up and slow down and do it in exactly amount of time amount that it still is 24 hours each time. But anyway, as far as the sun going down, sun coming up, sunrise, sunset, that can't happen on a flat Earth because they claim it's the same height. But yeah, you can't see it, even though you can see the North Star everywhere, regardless of how far away you are from it, until you get to the south. The equator, and when you go beyond the equator, then it becomes south of the equator, it becomes invisible. But anyway, the Bible says a whole bunch of times about the going down of the sun, the rising of the sun. Sun arises and the sun goes down. It hastes to his place where it arose, where his place where he arose. So that's what happens. We see every day the sun sets, and then it arises on the opposite horizon. It rises in the east and sets in the west, and then the next morning it comes again and it's in the east again and sets in the west. So it sure operates as if it is. If the Earth was flat, it operates as if it is rotating around it this way. You see what I'm saying? If the Earth was flat, it would be rotating it around this way. Is from our visible observation, it looks like it's doing this, rather than what the flat Earth claims is it's doing this, because some part of the Earth is lit all the time, 24 hours a day. There's at least some portion of the Earth that is lit, that it's daytime for them. And so for that to happen, they can't imagine that it goes under the Earth and comes back over on the top, or else you would have part of the Earth down here instead of up here. So they can't have a sun that does this. They have a sun that does this. And our visible observation shows that that's not true. It doesn't do that. It sets. It actually goes over the horizon. Most of us have seen the sun set, and the sun is a ball, and it goes down over the horizon. You can see half of it, or 3/4 of it, and then half of it, and then a quarter of it, and then all of a sudden, boom! It's down. A sunset. You can't see it anymore. That is impossible on a flat Earth, but yet you see it every day, and no matter where you are in the world, it happens. And the Bible talks about it a lot. Completely impossible on a flat Earth. Anyway, there's a bunch of verses on the sunrise and sunset. Here's just a few of them. We don't have to go and read them all, but they are pretty interesting. So this is the main thing that I wanted to talk about as far as literal observation. I wanted to focus a little bit more too on the sun. So the sun, what we see every day is it rises in the east and sets in the west. Now, that's especially apparent on the equinox. See, every year there's 2 times a year that it's called a vernal equinox, and that is where there's exactly the same amount of daylight as there is nighttime. So you got 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night. Now, where we are in the northern hemisphere right now, we actually have probably close to 14 hours of daylight, and so then there would only be 10 hours of night, something like that. That's what's happening now. What we see is, on the vernal equinox, is the sun will always rise and set exactly due east. Have you ever noticed it? Like if you're driving in a car on a road that's east-west road, and the sun sets right in the middle of the road. That's where the sun sets when it goes down. That happens twice a year, the vernal equinox in the spring, and there's a spring and fall equinox. Equinox just simply means equal parts of day and night. Anyway, that the path of the sun, it will set exactly east or west. Now, that happens no matter where you are on the planet. So here's another globe. If you're on the Earth and the sun is setting in the due east, which happens twice a year, that's gonna happen whether you're way down here, the southern tip of South America, or if you're up in Alaska. Regardless of where you are on the planet, you're going to have to look exactly due east to see the sunrise, and the sunset will be exactly due west. Now, the reason for that is the Earth is actually on a angle. It's not it's not it's rotating, but it's not rotating straight like this. It's rotating at an angle. That's why you have the seasons. You have summer and winter, and you have it hot right now in the summer in the northern hemisphere. At this very same time, you go down to Australia and it's cold. It's cold down here because they're in the middle of winter. We're in the middle of summer, and that's because of the angle of the sun. So what happens is the sun hits more directly on the northern hemisphere in the summer, and in the winter it it has more opportunity to hit the southern hemisphere. For our winter, it's their summer, and so they get more time for the sun. But the point that I was trying to make on the vernal equinox and the fact that it sets exactly due east and due west, if the Earth was flat, this couldn't happen. You couldn't have the sunset directly east everywhere in the world or due west. So if the Earth was flat and the sun is actually rotating in a circle, we, at least right now in the summer, we see more than half of its rotation because we're seeing 14 hours of daylight and only 10 hours a night. So we're seeing more than half of the path of the sun every day. We can see that. And if the flat Earth were true, the sun was doing what they claim, going around in a circle above our heads, then we would see the sun rise in the east, but it would be northeast, way up northeast, and then it would set in the northwest. And in the meantime, it would make a semicircle over our heads. We would see a complete semicircle. Semicircle is half of a circle. We'd see the whole half of the circle in the summertime. We'd actually see a little more than half of that circle. We'd see the sun do that every day. And it would rise in the northeast, set in the northwest, but it doesn't do that. Especially like in the vernal equinox, it will rise due east, set due west, makes a path over our head. Now the path is interesting because where we are in the northern hemisphere, the path actually starts in the east, and then it will make an angle and go south a bit as it's traveling over our heads. It'll go south. It will never, where I live, it will never be straight over your head at noon, and that for that reason, any building will never see the sun on the north side of the building. The sun never reaches there unless you're in the tropical zone. You know, there's a tropic of Cancer and tropic of Capricorn. Those are these two lines here. I'm sorry, I might be boring you a little bit with. I want to get especially to the main meat of this because it's something that's very important and very obvious and easy to change to observe. Sorry, the time zones. So a time zone is about 1,000 miles wide at the equator. So because the Earth is 24,000 miles around from here all the way around to here, 24,000 miles, the time zone split up into hours. The time zone is going to be about 1,000 miles across at the equator. And yet it's only about 600 miles across a time zone. If you're up here in Alaska, it's only about 600 miles, but also that time zone, the width of a time zone down in the southern tip of South America in Chile, it's also only about 600 miles. So that's what I want to investigate is the time zones, because if the flat Earth was true, the time zones would get bigger as you go south. It would get bigger and bigger, and even when you get to the equator, it would continue to get bigger and bigger. The time zones, the width of the time zones, would get bigger and bigger because it would you'd have more area to cover in a 24-hour period. But that's not what happens. Anyway, a time zone the um, at the southern tip of Chile should be about 2,600 miles. Oops. It should be about 2,600 miles is how wide the time zone should be in Chile because of how far south it is. And on a flat Earth, it's gonna need to be a really wide time zone because they claim that there's a like the ring around the flat Earth, the ice ring, is supposedly very big, like 65,000 miles to travel around that whole circumference of the ice ring, supposedly. Well, anyway, those if that's the case, then of course your time zones are going to have to be really big because you just divide it by 24. If it's 65,000, you divide it by 24, you're going to get a very large number. And like in the southern tip of Chile, you're going to have 2,600 miles across each time zone. Um, there's way too much missing land south of the equator for the Earth to be flat. Where I live in Tulsa area, the time zones are 836 miles wide. Oops. That's how wide it is where I live up here. Um, it's 836 miles around this circle. If you went all the way around, it'd be 836 miles. That's how far you sorry, not 836 miles is each time zone. So that times 24 is how far around it is, around 20,000 miles around this circle. And I know you can't see the picture too well since it's so small, but give me a moment. I'll explain this. Look at this map here. So the one on the left is a globe map. The one on the right is the flat Earth map. This is the Gleason map. Gleason map. It's fairly widely accepted as somewhat true among flat earthers that the Earth is looks kind of like this flat Earth. And then this is what it looks like on the globe. Now, what was I was explaining about these distances? So at the equator, the distance around is 24,875 miles. That's how far you would have to go due east or due west and go all the way around the world and return to the same location. You'd have to travel 24,000 miles, 24,875 miles. That's 17.27 miles per minute. So that means if you travel 17 at the equator, if you travel 17.27 miles, the sunset is going to change by 1 minute. That's what I want to focus on is the sunset times. You can actually measure the Earth using sunset times just by what time the sunset is. And now, as a Sabbath keeper, I pay attention to the sunsets. I'm sure you guys do as well. You understand what time the sunset is, and if you're confused about it, you can look on. Today we have a lot of computer applications that tell you exactly what time the sun sets, even to the very second. There's certain applications that can do that for you, and if you understand and figure out what the sunset time is where you live, you can check to see what the sunset, how far you have to travel to change the sunset by 1 minute. That's what this MPM is that I wrote here. Anyway, where I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma area, the sunset changes. I have to travel 13.93 miles to change the sunset by 1 minute. So that's how far I have to travel, 13.93 miles. Every 13/14, every 14 miles I travel east or west, the sunset is going to change by 1 minute. Now, where I live, I shop east of here. It's about 20 miles east of where I live, where I do my shopping, which that changes the sunset by 1 minute. The sunset actually goes down a little over a minute earlier where I do my shopping than it is where I live because that's just what happens. Your sunset will change depending on where you are on the earth. Anyway, when you understand or when you know the exact distance that you have to travel where you are to change the sunset by 1 minute, you can easily calculate the circumference of the earth at that location. So like I said, where I live, it's about 14 miles per minute that I have to travel east or west, and then the sunset will change by 1 minute. And all you have to do is multiply that by 60, and you get the distance you have to travel to change it by 1 hour. And then you multiply that by 24, and you have the distance you have to travel to change the sunset by 24 hours, which of course then would take you back to the same location. And then the neat thing about that is then you can measure very exact measurement of the earth You can measure the distance of the Earth around the location where you are. Like where I am is right here in this line. I'm not sure where Norway is. Is it? That's up here somewhere, isn't it? You're up pretty far. Um, so your distance up there in Norway is going to be different. So the ring slice, the distance of the ring where you live is going to be like in Iowa City, where we are up north. I only have to travel 12.9 miles per minute to change the sunset by 1 minute. Um, and up in Iowa City, the distance around the world is 18,587 miles. Now, what I find really interesting is I've never seen this discussed anywhere on any of the videos I've watched, which are very numerous. Nobody ever talks about this, and it's so easy to do. No matter where you are, just check the time of the sunset, and you can calculate exactly how big the world is where you are, how far it is all the way around, because the sun makes that path every day, and you can let the sun measure it for you. You don't have to get out a tape measure and measure it yourself. You can actually let the sun measure the distance around the world where you are. And you can do this anywhere in the world, like up in northern Alaska. You only have to travel 5.92 miles to change the sunset by 1 minute. Every almost 6 miles you travel up in northern Alaska, the sunset is going to change by 1 minute every 6 miles. Whereas where I am, it's every 14 miles. I have to go 14 miles to get the sunset to change by a minute. But up there in Alaska, you only have to go 6 miles. And the distance around the world in Alaska is 8,536 miles. That is how far it is around the world up in northern Alaska. Now, this is really easy to observe. It's really easy to check. There's a website you can go to that'll tell you there's a whole bunch of websites that tell you the exact sunset, but there's some that will go in more detail and tell you the exact second that the sun sets. And with that information and knowing the location, you can calculate the width of the circumference of the world at that point, and it's always sunset times. Now, these flat earth people say, well, we're being lied to by everybody. You can't lie about the sunset, right? There's no way you can lie about the sun, what time the sunset is. You just go out, anybody can go out and look at the sun setting. And if it's not setting at the time that it says that it's setting, then you know that they're lying to you. And there would have to be a huge lie if they're going to lie to everybody about the sunset times around the world. Now, an interesting reality is on a flat Earth, if you take this map and you flatten it out, like I literally did right here, I took this globe, I took this globe model of the Earth here. I'm going to stop the share just for a moment. I took this globe model of the Earth and I flattened it out. I cut it up and flattened it out. And this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like flattened out. And you'll notice there's some gaps here. There's gaps because there's more space when you flatten a map out like this. There's more space. Anyway, there's gaps here. This is the United States. It's got some gaps here. It's a little bit bigger when you flatten it out. But when you get to the southern hemisphere, when you get to Australia, for example, here you have the map of Australia, and there's huge gaps because the difference gets much bigger when you go south to the equator for the flat Earth. Um, and that's Africa. I think that's got some big gaps in it. Anyway, this is what happens if you try to make the Earth into flat. You end up with a whole bunch of missing space. There's a missing miles all over the place. So looking at this flat Earth on the right side here, I'll go back to this one. So on the right side, you notice this map has been exaggerated. There's Australia right there. It's covering 3 time zones, like Anyway, it's got two time zones plus another one here.
We don't
These
have
lines.
we don't have the PowerPoint now.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize. Yeah, thank you. I gotta share my screen again, but it's not. Hold on. Oh, there we go. All right. So anyway, here you notice the ring sizes. If you flatten out the Earth, like has been done with this Gleason map, um, they have to stretch out all the distances in when, especially when you get south of the equator, the change is dramatic. So like here's the United States. Um, Unfortunately, I don't know if there's a way to zoom in on this. I don't think I can zoom in to show you this better. It's a little bit zoomed in, but
People can just
see.
click on the program, then it gets really large.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, nice.
we can do it. We can spread it out on our phone and get bigger.
Oh, okay, great. Well, anyways, you can see that there's ring slices on the flat Earth. I just added these red lines, these red circle lines around to show you the ring slices. These ring slices, notice on a flat Earth, and also on a globe Earth, if you're in the northern Alaska, that ring is going to be small. But look at it displayed on a flat Earth. See how small that ring is? That's because the length around the Earth at that point is 8,000 miles. It's 8,000 miles around. That's what we observe. Now, on a flat Earth, the numbers are going to be bigger, because even on a flat Earth, see if we take this globe and flatten it out, the distance from the North Pole to the equator, most flat earthers don't have a issue with that. They understand the distance on a globe Earth or a flat Earth from the North Pole to the equator is going to be the same, pretty much, regardless of which way you view the Earth. So it's going to be from the North Pole to the equator is a little over 6,000 miles. So it's 6,000 miles from the North Pole to the equator. But if you flatten this out, see on the Earth, on a globe Earth, you're going to have the equator 24,875 miles around at the equator. But if you flatten this out, the equator suddenly becomes big because you're taking the 6,000 miles and you're stretching it straight. And if you take from this point right here on the globe, on the North Pole, and you go straight out to 6,000 miles, if you're not understanding it's a globe, then you're going straight out and you're going to have a very big distance. The circle around the world there is going to be very large on a flat Earth compared to on a globe. The equator is going to be 24,875 miles around, but on a flat Earth, it's going to be more like 37,000 miles. I wrote those numbers down on this Gleason map on the right, and I have this as a PDF I can give to anybody if anybody wants this, because then you can read these details a lot better. But the point is, you can measure these rings precisely based on the sunset times wherever you are on the Earth. It's not hard. It's easy to do. All you have to do is calculate how far you have to travel in your location due east. Now you can't go northeast or northwest or southwest. You got to go due east or due west. Doesn't matter which direction you go, but if you go due east or due west, figure out how far you have to travel to change the sunset by 1 minute, exactly 1 minute to the second, 60 seconds. Then all you have to do is multiply that number. Like where I live, I said it's around 14 miles. I travel 14 miles and the sunset changes by 1 minute. And you multiply that by 60, and you have how far you have to travel to change the sunset by 1 hour. And you multiply that by 24, and you have how far you have to travel to change the sunset by 24 hours, which is exactly one full rotation. So you can measure the ring slices of the Earth wherever you are. And if the Earth was flat or round, you could do it the same. The calculations would be the same. However, or the way to calculate it would be the same. However, your results would be different if you're on a flat Earth. These rings would continually get bigger. See, here's the rings. I have the same rings here on the flat Earth. A Gleason map, I have them here and I have them on the globe here. The 8,000 mile Alaska line is right here. That's the smallest ring that I have in the picture. The next ring is the Iowa City line. That is 18,587 miles because you have to travel 12.9 miles to change the sunset by 1 minute. So you measure the width of the Earth or the circumference of the Earth at that location, and it's 18,000 miles here, and that's what this second ring is. The third ring here is where I live. This is the Tulsa area. That ring is 20,000 miles. That's how big the ring is. But on a flat Earth, you'll notice that the miles would get bigger and bigger, and they're actually going to be different even at this location. Even in the Alaska line, on a flat Earth, because you're going straight out, you're going to have the ring is already going to get bigger even in northern Alaska. It's going to be bigger than 8,000 miles because you're going straight. You're not going around the curve, around the circle. So anyway, these numbers get exaggerated really quickly, get changed. So here's the number at the equator, this distance around the equator right here, and that's 24,000 miles. That's on a globe. It fits. It makes sense. 24,875 miles. That's how big the ring is at the equator. But on a flat Earth, that ring has to be around 37,000 miles around. That's how far you'd have to travel around this circle to get back to the same location. And the sun does it every day. It measures it. You can measure it with the sunset times every day. You can calculate this and you can figure it. I have a website. There's a website you can go to that'll tell you the exact location to the second of the sunset in any place on the planet, no matter where you are. And so you can calculate these times based on the sunset times. You can measure the Earth and you can tell really quickly whether it's a globe or a flat. It's not hard at all. Notice this next ring. This next ring is the ring at Santiago, Chile. Now, Santiago, Chile is almost the same distance around the Earth where Santiago, Chile is as it is where I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma. See, where I live, it's 20,000 miles, 20,068 miles. In Santiago, Chile, it's 20,699 miles. They're actually just a little bit bigger in Santiago, Chile. But you can check this. I actually have a friend in Santiago, Chile I can talk to and ask them about the sunset. You know, what time is sunset in Santiago, Chile? I can also ask them how far it is to go to the other side of the continent. You know, they can travel from Santiago, Chile, which is on the west side of South America, all the way over to the east side of Santiago, Chile. There's bus lines you can take that'll make that trip. And I can't read this right now. Give me just a second. I'm gonna get one of these that I can zoom in. So just give me a second. I apologize for the delay, but this won't take long. I'm just getting one that I can zoom in and all right. Let me share my screen again. This takes a little bit. Sorry. Okay, so here is the same document, and I'm going to zoom in on it. So understand that Santiago, Chile, the distances are much different. See, in Santiago, Chile, if the Earth was flat, this ring would obviously have to be bigger. The circumference of the Earth would have to be bigger at Santiago, Chile, much bigger than it is where I live in the Tulsa area. So that ring slice around the Earth, it should be much bigger than where I live in Oklahoma. See the size of this ring? Where I live, if the flat Earth was true and the distance from the North Pole to where I am, the circle should be 23,000 miles, 23,413. So it's already too big of a circle than reality. Reality is we're only 20,000 miles across. See, if it was really 23,000 miles, I would have to travel about 16 minutes, or sorry, 16 miles to change the sunset by 1 minute. But I don't have to do that. I only have to travel a little less than 14 miles to change the sunset by 1 minute. So I know that the flat Earth model is not true for even where I am in the northern hemisphere. It's not right, because the reality is it's 20,000 miles around this circle. It's not 23,000 miles. But when you get to the equator, the distance is, in reality, it's 24,875 miles. And you have to travel 17 miles to change the sunset by 1 minute at the equator. But if the flat Earth were true, at the equator, the ring would already have to be 39,045 miles. 39,000 miles around that ring. That's what it would have to be on a flat Earth, but it's not flat. But when you get to Santiago, Chile, now there the distance is way different. So the reality is, based on the sunset times, it's 20,699 miles. That is how far it is around the world in Santiago, Chile. But if the flat Earth were true, it would have to be 53,000 miles. That's a difference of, it's over twice, almost 3 times the distance, which would mean then if you were going to travel to change the sunset by 1 minute, where I live, like I said, it's about 14 miles. In Santiago, Chile, it's about 14 miles as well. But if the flat Earth were true, they would have to travel at least like 35 miles to change the sunset by 1 minute. Are you getting what I'm explaining? Is this making sense?
Well, you have a very mathematic brain. I'm trying to follow along.
Okay, so
Yeah,
maybe
I'm getting it. I'm
Yeah.
getting it. Definitely getting it.
Oh, yeah.
okay. Well, when you get to the southern tip of Chile, the distance around the world in the southern tip of Chile is 14,373 miles. Now that's based on the sunset times. Do you understand? Like where you live, you go out and you see the sunset. You can calculate and understand exactly when that sun sets to the second, when the sun goes over the horizon. Now, of course, that's calculated based upon if you have no obstruction of the horizon. If you have a mountain in the way, the sun's going to go over the mountain long before it goes actually over the horizon. Like if you're at the ocean looking at the sunset. But the sunset, it will change no matter where you are in the world. If you go east or west, the sunset is going to change at a certain rate. How many miles you have to travel, the sunset is going to change by 1 minute every so often, depending on where you are. Like if you're in southern Chile, the distance around the world is 14,373 miles. You can measure that with the sunset times. And it's not 62,000 miles, which is what it would have to be on a flat Earth. It would have to be 62,000 miles around this circle if the flat Earth were true. And that's getting back to, you can see the amount of miles that are missing. When you get to Chile, southern Chile, there is almost 50,000 miles of Earth that is missing. It's just not there. It's kind of like, this map of the globe, which I spread out for you. All of this space is gone. You have to remove a whole bunch of space to turn it into a flat Earth. But the reality is these distances around the world the distances around the world, you can measure, they get bigger and bigger as you go south of the North Pole. They get bigger and bigger until you get to the equator. Once you get to the equator, the size of the Earth around in a circle, based on the sunset times, gets smaller and smaller, and it gets smaller consistently all the way down to the South Pole. Now, this couldn't possibly happen on a flat Earth. The rings would have to get bigger and bigger as you go further from the North Pole. But what happens in reality is they get bigger and bigger until you get to the equator, and then they start getting smaller again. The ring slices are actually smaller. Reality shows us that they're smaller. Now, I wanted to read something here. So, if I'm just looking at this Santiago, Chile, this is really plain. If the sunset times are accurate in Santiago, Chile, on these websites, you can go and check the sunset times. If those times are accurate and the distances are accurate, which, like I said, I have a friend in Santiago, Chile, who has confirmed some of these. I also have a friend over in Argentina, and he confirmed the same thing about the sunset times and the distances. So pay attention to this. The trip from San Pedro, Argentina, so that's right about here. This is Argentina. This trip from San Pedro, Argentina, to Puente Alto, Chile. So that's over here in Chile. This distance from where my hand is over to here where my hand is, that distance it takes 17 hours and 49 minutes. That's how long it takes to travel. And it's 842.6 miles of roads. So now this is based on the road distance. So like if you're going to get in a car and drive, the roads are going to wind, there's going to be differences in the road. But you can make this trip from San Pedro, Argentina to Puente Alto, Chile, and it takes 17 hours and 49 minutes over a total of 842.6 miles. That's how far you have to travel of roads, and you have to travel at an average speed of 47.3 miles an hour. Now, you understand, a lot of times when you're driving, you're going faster than 47 miles an hour. You might be going 65 miles an hour, but you're not able to do that all the time. So when you average out the speed from when you stop, when you go around a curve and everything, this trip takes 17 hours and 49 minutes, almost 18 hours, to travel 842 miles, and it takes 47.3. You have to travel at 47 miles an hour to make that trip. To make that same trip on a flat Earth, so if the Earth was actually flat and these distances were as big as the flat Earth claim, then you would have to travel over 2,183 miles. So this distance would now, instead of being 842 miles, this distance would have to be 2,183 miles. That's how far you'd have to go just based on the sunset times. You'd have to travel that far. And you would have to maintain a constant speed of 122 miles an hour. That's how fast you'd have to travel to make that distance, to make that journey. Are you going to drive in a car 122 miles an hour average speed through
No,
mountains, around curves?
no, you get a
There's no
ticket.
you get a ticket, but there's no way you can make such a trip.
Oh, you.
Well, okay, some people do drive fast. I realize that, but going this distance, you're going over the Andes Mountains. You're not going to make a trip through the Andes Mountains that fast. Somebody's talking. Go ahead. I can't hear you. Try again.
Oh, sorry. I thought I had the mute on.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, anyway, so we know logically that you're not going to make that trip, especially in a bus. And I have friends in both places who have verified these miles and sunset times. You can book a bus trip right here on this website, kimkim.com, AB Santiago to Buenos Aires. You can book this trip, and it's going to take 17 hours to make the trip, 18, almost 18 hours. There's no possible way that you could do this trip in 18 hours in a bus if the Earth was flat. Are you understanding this? this distance,
Yeah, because it spreads everything out. Mhm.
yeah, it
Doesn't-
splits everything and it just deletes space. That's how you make it
Mhm.
flat. And look what they did with this Gleason map. Look at Australia. Look how big Australia is across. See that? Australia covers 3 time zones. See, it goes 2 complete time
Uh-huh.
zones and then 2 half time zones. That's how big it is. Look at the United States. Here's the United States. Look, it's covering 3 plus time zones, right? 4 time zones. You can see these lines that represent time zones. It's covering more time zones, and yet look how small it is in comparison to Australia. See, look how big Australia is. It's at least twice as big. They had to stretch it out, but it's just fake. It's not reality. You go to Australia,
Yeah.
the distance is not that big. This is not possible. The flat Earth calculations are not at all possible. The world, when you measure the Earth, which you can with the sunset, every day you can measure the size of the world, and this is how big it is. See, on a flat Earth, these numbers would have to continually increase. I already explained that. Anyway, so here's the written explanation of it. Let me just read this written explanation. No matter where you are on the Earth, the apparent location of the sun makes a complete rotation and returns to approximately the same place 24 hours later. So that's easy to understand, right? Everybody understands that. As you travel east or west, the sunset time will change. So that's why, like, I have some friends, Lonnie and Abigail, they're out in Idaho. They're a long distance from me. They got up early to get on this study this morning. Why? Because the sun hasn't even risen yet there, has it? 6:30. Maybe it's risen already over there. I don't know. But I don't know what time the
Oh
sunrise
yeah, the
is.
sun rises really early here.
Okay, it's early there because they're so far north. The further
Yeah,
north you go, the further
that's
north
right.
you go, the earlier the sun will rise in the summer. The later it will rise in the winter. It get to the point if you go far enough
Mhm,
north,
that's right.
the sun won't even rise in the winter. In the middle of winter, you won't even see the sun. It'll be below the horizon all day. And also in South America, in Antarctica, the same thing happens. Interesting. Recently, there was a man that set up this experiment. It's called the final experiment. This happened just a few months ago. He got several flat earth people. I don't know. I think there's 3 flat earth people and 3 globe earth people. In other words, people who believed in the flat earth, people who believed in the globe earth. And he booked a trip for them to go to Antarctica. And they went to Antarctica. And the reason they went there is they wanted to see if the sun was visible for 24 hours in Antarctica. And as you notice, oops, as you notice, um, Antarctica down here, if the flat Earth were true, then the sun is traveling in a circle over your head. And they claim that the reason it's nighttime, say in the United States, the reason it's nighttime is because the sun's too far for you to see it. So the sun's way over here producing light, and you're right here. You can't see it. The sun's over here, hidden only by distance or a nightshade or something that's supposedly over the sun, which doesn't make any sense because, again, you can see the North Star no matter where you are. The North Star is at the same location, and it doesn't move. You can see it whether you're up here or whether you're down here. You can still see it. It doesn't disappear because it's too far away. It disappears only because the sun rises and you can't see it anymore. It's too bright. Um, but anyway, in Antarctica, these 6 3 flat earthers and 3 globe earthers traveled to Antarctica. So they're somewhere in Antarctica, and they're observing the sun. and they see the sun make a complete rotation. And guess what? The sun travels around opposite as it does in the North Pole. See, if you go in the North Pole, it's going to rise east to west. So if you're standing in the North Pole, you're going to see the sun in the summer. You're going to see the sun rise in the east, and it's going to go around your head, and it's going to travel this direction. It's going to go counterclockwise. If you look straight up overhead, you're going to see the sun go counterclockwise over your head. That happens in the North Pole. But if you're in the South Pole or in Antarctica, in the summertime down there, you're going to see the sun do the opposite. It's not going to do a counterclockwise rotation. It's going to rotate all the way around the world, around your horizon. You're going to see it. It'll be above the horizon the whole time in the middle of summer in Antarctica, and it'll go all the way around your head. But instead of traveling like it does in the North Pole in a semicircular motion, it's going to travel clockwise. And I said semicircle, I meant counterclockwise. So in the North Pole, it rotates counterclockwise. In the South Pole, it rotates clockwise. The sun does that. Anyway, so these flat earthers went down there with this globe earthers, and they saw the sun. They claimed ahead of time the sun is not, it can't do that. It can't rotate clockwise in the South Pole, and it can't be visible 24 hours a day. Because if the earth was flat and the sun disappears from your sight, that's why it's nighttime supposedly. It disappears from your sight, it's too far away. So from where we are in the United States to over here, it's too far away to see, supposedly. So when you go to the South Pole, Antarctica, it wouldn't be possible if the sun is making this rotation and it's way over here. You couldn't see it from here. You couldn't see it from Antarctica. But they went to the South Pole and they saw it rotating over their heads in a clockwise manner, opposite of the way it does in the North Pole. They saw this happen. They were there for like 3 days, and they did a whole bunch of videos and reports of it. Well, 2 of those flat earthers came home believing in the globe, because they said it's impossible. You can't have that happen on a flat earth. You can't go to Antarctica and see the sun rotate over your heads 24 hours and go in a clockwise manner. It's impossible on a flat earth, because supposedly the sun is going around like this. Actually, it would be going this way, right? Counterclockwise from the North Pole. And supposedly the sun's traveling around in this circular manner, but you can't have that happen in the South Pole. Anyway, I hope I've explained this distance enough for you, but I do want to finish reading this portion. So no matter where you are on the Earth, the apparent location of the sun makes a complete rotation and returns to approximately the same place 24 hours later. As you travel east or west, the sunset time will change. When you calculate the distance you have to travel due east or west to change the sunset time by exactly 1 minute, you can use that information to determine the size of the circular slice of Earth where you are. You can do this using the free GPS app called GPS Test, which tells you the exact time of sunset at your location to the second. You can find the same information for any location on Earth by using the website sunearthtools.com. So you can go to sunearthtools.com and you can get the exact sunset time to the second anywhere on the globe. And then you multiply the miles you have to travel to change the sunset by exactly 1 minute times 60, and you'll have the miles you must travel to change the sunset by 1 hour. You multiply that number by 24, and you have the circumference of the slice of the world at that location. Are you understanding that part, Sister Eva?
Yep, I am. Thank you.
All right, very good. Now, interestingly, you can get the same information using geometry, or actually trigonometry. You can find the same information with trigonometry using the latitude of your location as the angle of a triangle from the center of the Earth to your location. This is going to be a little more technical. If you're not mathematically inclined, this might not make a whole lot of sense, but you can calculate the exact, what's that?
Oh, I only took algebra, college algebra. I didn't get up to trigonometry, so it might be a little hard.
Well, basically, this is geometry, a little more advanced geometry, but you're with trigonometry, you can calculate if you have the angle of a triangle and the length of one side of the triangle, you can figure out the other lengths and the other angles. That's with trigonometry. There's some calculations you have to make, but you can do this. It's pretty easy. Well, I mean, it's a little challenging, but you can use a scientific calculator and get this information here. And I'm going to explain it. So anybody on here who's listening who does understand trigonometry or understand what we're talking about here, you can do this calculation wherever you are in the earth. Now, when you get a GPS location, you're going to have two numbers. You're going to have like where we are, it's like 34, and the other one is 92 or something. I don't remember the exact numbers, but that pinpoints the exact location where you live. Oh, I talk about it right here, longitude and latitude. 39,101. Okay, here I'll explain it. You can find the same information with trigonometry. So you can measure these rings with trigonometry also. Now this trigonometry only works on a globe, but it works and it's perfect. You can find the same information with trigonometry using the latitude of your location as the angle of a triangle from the center of the earth to your location, with the bottom of the triangle going straight out toward the equator. The length of the hypotenuse of the triangle, hypotenuse is the longest part of a triangle, is the radius of the earth, which is 3,963 miles. That's how far it is from the center of the globe, very middle center point, to the outer part. From the center to the outer part straight out is 3,963 miles. Now that's average because it does vary slightly in different parts of the world, but for the most part, it's very close to that. Using a scientific calculator, you can use that information to find the radius of the circle of the earth where you are. Enter the latitude angle in a calculator and press the COS sign. So if you have a calculator, I could bring on a computer, you got calculators, you can do the COS sign. It's cosine is what it stands for. Press the COS sign. So you put in the angle and then you push COS button. The cosine of 33.609891, the latitude of Santiago, Chile, which is 0.8328, a whole bunch of numbers. That is what you're going to get when you push cosine. It can be multiplied by the hypotenuse, which is 3,963, to give the radius of the circle of Santiago, Chile. Multiply that radius by 2, and then multiply that by pi, and that's 3.14. And you have the size of the ring where you are, which is 20,737 miles and 0.57. This is the number you get by using trigonometry at Santiago, Chile, based upon their latitude. The latitude, and the latitude can be calculated from wherever you are by looking at how far the north, if you're in the North Pole, how far the North Star is from the horizon. And they use this. There's a device called a sextant. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's sextant. It's a device that allows, if you're on a ship or on a boat on the ocean, you can calculate exactly how far you are from the North Pole with a sextant. Because all you have to do is you line it up with the horizon. It's an old device, and you line it up with the North Star. And you can use the sun for that as well, but you do different calculations with it. But you use a sextant and you can calculate the exact distance you are from the North Pole based upon the position of the North Star with the sextant. And that's calculating the angle of how far the North Star is above the horizon. And then you can figure out how far you are down on the Earth. And that number is the latitude. You can get the latitude of your location with a sextant, or you can look on the internet and find it. Like I already found Santiago, Chile's latitude, and I multiplied it and calculated it, and it's 20,737 miles at Santiago, Chile. The results are remarkably close to the other method mentioned above with the sunset times. The sunset times for Santiago, Chile is, I put it down here, 20,699 miles. So that's based on the sunset times. That's how I got that number. I didn't use anything else but the sunset times to calculate the circumference of the Earth, 20,699 miles. Now notice what you get with the trigonometry calculation, 20,737 miles. See how close that is?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the same number. And this, you're just using trigonometry and your latitude, and you can find that information. That's how big the circle of the Earth is in Santiago, Chile. The results are remarkably close to the other method mentioned above using sunset times. This could not possibly happen on a flat Earth. In southern Chile, the results are a circumference of 14,403 miles, almost identical to the sunset time calculation. I traveled on Interstate 70 through Kansas to Denver on a very flat east-west section of the road at a latitude of 39.3297 longitude and 101.84 latitude. Anyway, latitude and longitude, I mixed them up. I measured 13.3 miles to change the sunset time by exactly 1 minute, yielding a ring size of 19,152 miles. The latitude calculation yields 19,260 miles. So if I use the same calculation using trigonometry, I get almost the same number. Iowa, Kansas, and Tulsa locations I measured myself. Try these experiments and share your results. Enjoy. So see these times? Excuse me. The Kansas distance that I just showed, I measured myself. The Iowa distance, I measured that myself. And the Tulsa, Oklahoma distance, I measured myself. You can do these calculations. You can measure the size of the world wherever you are on the planet. And if you're in the northern hemisphere, you're still not going to get flat Earth numbers. Your numbers aren't going to equal the flat Earth numbers. But if you're in the southern hemisphere, the numbers still won't match, but the numbers are just going to get bigger and bigger disparity because of all the Earth they had to delete to come up with a flat Earth. They had to get rid of so much land space, so much Earth space, in the ocean as well, to make a flat Earth map. And it just doesn't fit. You can measure the Earth with the sunset times, and it's easy to calculate. It's something I've never seen anybody explain in the many, many hours of videos that I've looked at. This has never been explained, but to me, it's so obvious. To me, if these ring slices are smaller as you go further south of the equator, then there's no possible way that the Earth is flat. It's just impossible, just based on the sunset times. So go check the sunset times where you are. If you live in the southern hemisphere, I don't see how you can think the Earth is flat, even though there are people who think that. I did want to explain something else, so give me just a moment. Excuse me. And I know that time is short here, so I'm not going to belabor it too long. Here's something about the time zones in Australia. I already mentioned how they had to stretch out Australia to put it on a flat map. In reality, what they did is they just deleted a whole bunch of Earth, or added in a whole bunch of fake Earth that's not there. Because when you flatten it out, there's all these spaces that start happening. The widest part of Australia is 2,461 miles. It would have to be at least twice that to cover 3 time zones that far south of the flat Earth, if flat was correct. The US is 2,655 miles at the widest point, east to west, and it has 4 time zones. So you notice this? Australia is actually shorter than the United States is across east to west. But if the flat Earth were true, Australia would have to be at least twice the size across, and it's not. I have friends in Australia, and they can tell you it's not. It's not 5,000 miles across Australia. It's only 2,000. I've driven from east to west across the United States. I have a pretty good idea of how far it is across. I've never done that in Australia, but if you went to Australia, you're going to find as you travel across, it's going to be a little bit shorter than going across the United States. But that can't be on a flat Earth. If the flat Earth were true, Australia would have to be at least twice as big as the United States across, and it's not. Reality tells you it's not. Here, look at this. This is very interesting too. So here's Australia on a quote flat Earth map. There's Australia. Here's the United States for distance. This is from California. Now these numbers are airplane flights. This is Qantas, which is an Australian airline company. Qantas flight 27. It goes from Australia over to Santiago, Chile in South America. It makes this trip. And you can get on that flight, and it takes 12 and a half hours to make that trip from Australia to Santiago, Chile. So if this is a flat Earth, and this is the path, approximate path that the airplane goes. See, it goes this location. It doesn't come up and make a straight line across, a straight line from flat Earth. Now on a globe, it's pretty much a straight line that they travel from Santiago, Chile to, see on a globe, it would be Australia to, here's Australia here, and there's Santiago, Chile over here. And so, you know, if you're going to fly from here, from Santiago, Chile, Santiago is over on this side. So to fly from here over to Australia, you are not going to want to, if the globe were true, of course, and which I believe it is, you would not travel this direction to get way over here. If a globe were true, you would make the shortest distance you could, which on a globe, it would be like right over this way. That's the way you would travel to get to South America. You would not make a line across the United States to get there because it would be way too long of a distance. But anyway, this flat Earth doesn't work because look, the same Qantas airline flight 11, it travels from Australia to California, and it takes 13.5 hours to make this trip. Now, you know, when they get in an airplane, they have to calculate how far they can go, how much fuel to put in the airplane, and it's all calculated out ahead of time so that they can make the trip, especially if they're going over the ocean this far. They got to have enough gas to make it, enough fuel to make it. Now, if they were making, you just look at this flat Earth map and the lines here from this distance, and this is, by the way, the path that the airplane takes, QF11, and it takes them 13 hours to make this trip, but this trip they can make in 12 hours, 12 and a half hours. How could it take longer to make this trip than it takes to make this trip? If the flat Earth were true, this trip would take a lot longer, like twice as long. Instead of 13 hours, it would take 26 hours. But the reality is it only takes 12 hours. Are they traveling faster? Do they go faster? Does that Qantas flight go faster, twice as fast, instead of going like 600 miles an hour, 550, 600 miles? Are they going 1,200 miles an hour? That's faster than the speed of sound. They'd break the sound barrier. To make the flight in that time, they'd also have to have more gas. Also, this trip here from Australia over to Africa, to South Africa. This trip is Qantas Flight 63. It takes 13 and a half hours to go from here to Southern Africa. the same exact time, 13 and a half hours that it takes to get to California from Australia. This doesn't work. There's too much land missing. The reason they can travel all this distance is because there's not this much land space. You notice their time zones as they're drawing these out. See how they get bigger and bigger? The reality is those time zones down there aren't that big. The time zones are only about this big. But they drew them out as if they were that big, and they're not. They just add a whole bunch of extra space that doesn't exist. And the flight of these airline trips proves it. Now, there's some flat Earth people that say this Qantas flight doesn't exist. They have to disqualify. They say they never make that flight. It's just fake. Somebody's lying to us. But that's not true. You can book the flight today. You can go and get that flight. And there's people who video the flight. It's a real thing. And they also, along that flight, they see Antarctica for a brief time. I saw a video of the flight. But see, if they were making the flight on a flat Earth, the most logical place would be to make a straight line, and you would go over North America. You'd go over the United States to get to South America. That's the straightest line. That would be make the most sense if it were true. It would still take you a long time to get there, but you definitely wouldn't make this path that takes you to see Antarctica. Anyway, what's that?
Is that why pilots kind of, I saw a video on pilots. Pilots have a tendency to kind of laugh about the flat Earth. They think it's so silly because, obviously they haven't seen the ice ring where you fall off, or, they know that's not true.
Right. And I know we've been discussing this for a long time, so I'm sorry for the length of time I have, but just a few more things I want to go over. So this is the Gleason map with those points, those airline trips. This purple line is the approximate actual path of Qantas flight 27 that goes from Australia to Santiago, Chile. But if the flat Earth was true, you see this line, this would be the distance. This would be where it should go. But the reality is it comes nowhere near North America. It doesn't cross the equator. It goes straight to the straightest path they have. And it's this way. Anyway, I want to read a little bit. This is what happens when you try to chart Qantas Flight 27 from Sydney to Santiago on the popular Gleason flat map. Using an unknown distance as a ruler, 897 pixels. So this guy actually checked the pixels distance. He says this is 897 pixels. Qantas Flight 27 doesn't fly anywhere near North America. The flat Earth flight path completely misses New Zealand. So they fly south of New Zealand. See, if the Earth was actually flat, they wouldn't go south of New Zealand to get to Santiago, Chile. They would come a more direct route, but they don't. They go this way. And it says this distance is 2,313 pixels, approximately 25,000 kilometers. A Boeing 747-400 the cruising speed is 934 kilometers an hour. That's around 550 miles an hour. But Qantas Flight 27 can make it in 11 hours and 18 minutes. To get 25,000 miles in 11 hours, you'd have to travel 2,282 kilometers an hour. That's over twice that. That'd be over 1,000 miles an hour, which the sound barrier is around 900 or 870 or something is the speed of sound. There used to be an airplane that traveled that could break the speed of sound. It was what do they call that? The Concorde. Concorde airplane they don't use it anymore, but they used to fly really fast. They would break the speed barrier, and they could maybe make this trip that fast. But these Boeing airplanes, they go 900 miles an hour. They can't travel 2,000 miles an hour. or sorry, 1,000 miles an hour. They only travel like 550 miles an hour. Anyway, this is just another map of the same thing. Something's wrong with this picture. From Sydney to Johannesburg, South Africa is 11,000 kilometers. From Sydney to Buenos Aires is 11,800 kilometers. But from Sydney to London is 17,000 kilometers. See this line, 17,000 kilometers long. This line is 11,000 kilometers long, about 2/3 of the distance, and yet the line is longer. It's because this whole flat Earth concept is made up. Somebody invented it, and then a whole bunch of people grasped a hold of it. I did want to show this more. This is the Big Dipper. Surely you've seen the Big Dipper before. Anybody in the Northern Hemisphere can see this. Right now, the Big Dipper. Right now, the Big Dipper in the evening, in the summertime, if you go out and look at it, the handle is going to be pointing up, like this picture here on the left. This is pretty much what the Big Dipper looks like right now in the summertime in the Northern Hemisphere. It's actually just a little bit more rotated. And these two stars, by the way, they point straight to the North Star. So if this picture, calculating that out, North Star would be right over here somewhere. Actually, this next picture I have, this is the map of Alaska. This is the Alaska state map. It has the North Star being right here, and it has the Big Dipper, which these two stars point straight to the North Star. Now, the North Star doesn't move, but every night, all the other stars rotate that we see visibly. All the other stars rotate around it. The North Star stays in one place. All the other stars rotate, including the Big Dipper. So the Big Dipper, the Big Dipper rotates around the North Star, and we will see it looking like this, and we'll see it looking like that. And we'll see it at every location around. If you just observe, go look at the Big Dipper, it's going to look different ways at different times of the year, at different times of the day. Since you can only see half of the day's worth or half of the night worth of light to see the Big Dipper, you're not going to see it the same all year round. But all year round, depending on what time of night you go out, you're going to see it make a semicircle every night. It'll rotate from this to this. Every night you're going to see it this way. But what I wanted to point out, this is very interesting. The Big Dipper, these are two different pictures of the Big Dipper. Oops. One has the dipper part at the bottom and the handle facing up. This one has the dipper part at the top and the handle part facing down. Would it be possible to look at the stars and see this at the same time? From different spots on the Earth and see it. Some people are looking up and they see the stars look like this. Some people at the same moment of time are looking up and they see the stars look like that. Is that possible on a flat Earth?
Not possible.
Not possible. But the reality is, see, we'll just go into in the fall later on, say in December of this year or even March. You're going to look at the Big Dipper and it's going to look like this shortly after sunset, with the dipper facing up and the handle facing down. That's what it's going to look like shortly after sunset. Just go check it. It's going to be, say, March of this year. You go out and look, and the Big Dipper is going to look like this. But if you stayed up all night and watched it, it's going to rotate, and it's going to look like the one on the left right before sunrise. This is going to happen every day. For everybody on the Northern Hemisphere, you're going to be able to see it. Even in the Southern Hemisphere, parts of it, you can see the Big Dipper at times. But the fact is, you're going to see the rotation of the Big Dipper. You're going to see it in both of these locations and actually everywhere in between. Every night, you're going to see half of this rotation. It'll go from here, rotate to the left counterclockwise, and then it will look like this right before sunrise. So this is what's going to happen for you in Norway, and it's going to happen for me in the United States. In March, we're going to have the same scenario taking place every night. Right after sunset, I go out and look at it. If I had the ability to take a picture of it, it would look something similar to this, with the dipper on the top, handle at the bottom. But if I call you up in Norway at the same time and say, can you go take a picture of the Big Dipper? What time is it going to be in Norway? It's 7 hours ahead of us, right? So right after sunset, I see in the Big Dipper like this. You're going to actually see the Big Dipper look not like this. It'll be upside down from that, but um, at 7 hours later. So if it was 12 hours, there's people that are 12 hours ahead of us, like over in China. China's about 12 hours ahead of us. So if I call my friend, if I had a friend in China that I could call and say, okay, look, I'm looking at the Big Dipper right now, and the dipper part is facing up from the horizon. I got the horizon here. The dipper is facing up. The handle is facing down. Can you tell me right now, because they're going to still be able to see it right before sunrise, they're going to see it over there. And what's it going to look like in China? It's going to look like the one on the left in China at the very same moment of time. We can be on the phone talking. They're looking at it. Their horizon has the Big Dipper with the dipper facing down, the handle facing up. I'm looking at the Big Dipper and I'm seeing the dipper facing up and the handle facing down at the very same moment of time. This happens every night, where these things are going to be opposite every night. And that's not just the Big Dipper, but all the stars do the exact same thing. Big Dipper is just easy for us to see in the northern hemisphere. Is this possible on a flat Earth for two people on the same Earth to look at the same set of stars, and the horizon for me, it's here, and for the other person, the horizon's here, because they're looking at it from upside down? Is that possible on a flat Earth? Are they seeing different stars? The answer is no. They're seeing the exact same stars, but their horizon is what's flipped. And like for you guys in Norway, you're going to see it at the same moment of time. Your horizon is going to be like this. My horizon's like this to the North Star, or to the Big Dipper. Your horizon will be like this, and the people over in China will have their horizon like this. We're looking at the exact same stars, but a horizon is what's different. And the reason the horizon is different is because we're looking at it from a different angle. So here in the United States, in the United States, we're looking at the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper's up here. Big Dipper's up here somewhere. And we're looking at it at this angle like this. So from here up, we're looking at this Big Dipper. And these other people are on the other side of the world at the very same moment of time, and they're looking up at the Big Dipper. Their horizon is going to be the opposite of our horizon. You see what I'm saying? They're looking at it like this. We're looking at it like this. The stars aren't different. The horizon's different. Can you understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is really obvious. You can observe this every single day. So the Big Dipper is going to look different based upon where you are on the planet. It will be just as opposite as this is. Same thing as with Orion. This is a rough depiction of Orion. It's kind of odd looking, but if you're familiar with Orion, that's the belt right there in the middle. Anyway, Orion is a constellation located on the celestial equator and thus visible throughout the world. So no matter where you are in the world, you can see Orion, even if you're on the North Pole or on the South Pole. These three dots are representing different locations where you're looking at Orion. The angle of Orion makes this is the angle Orion makes during rising and setting corresponds to observers' latitude, and so does its altitude during culmination. All the observations are only consistent if Earth is a sphere. So, like if you're on the equator and you look at Orion, it's going to rise and set. See this arrow? It's going to rise. You're going to see it come up in the east, and it's going to look like this. Equator at the equator, you're going to see the Orion rise straight up It's not going to go at an angle. It's going to go straight up. When it sets, it's going to go straight down. When you look west at night, it's going to go straight down. Now, it does make a rotation throughout the night, just like the Big Dipper does. It makes a 180-degree rotation. So that's why the head of Orion is here, and the head of Orion is here. So some people talk about Orion and, oh, I see the Orion this way and this way. The reality is you see Orion look different every day. Every night it looks different. But what doesn't change is the direction it travels. So if you're at the equator, it's going to travel straight south and set. It's going to travel straight, not south, I'm sorry, straight up. And it'll set straight down and it'll rise straight up. But what happens if you're located up in Atlanta, Georgia, up here where this red dot is? Orion is going to look like this. And you can check this wherever you are. Look at what Orion does. Orion will rise in the east, and it arises at an angle. See, it comes up like that. It does not go straight up like it does at the equator. It comes up at an angle from left to right. And it sets. If you look in the west and it sets, it's going to go down at an angle from left to right. This happens every night with every star, not just Orion, but every star does this. The sun and the moon do the same thing. If you watch the sunset, the only difference is at well, sorry, they always, every time they go, if you're in the northern hemisphere, like in Atlanta, it's going to rise northeast, up to the right, and it's going to set down to the right. Now, if you're in Santiago, Chile, down here, this is what Orion's going to look like. Orion is going to rise from the bottom right. It is going to rotate or move to the left. This happens every day, whenever you can see Orion. It'll go up to the left and it will set down to the left. Anyway, this and for me where I live, when I see Orion come over the horizon, the belt, if you can see this close up, this belt is actually curved, or angled. It's not straight up and down. But where I live, because I live in the northern hemisphere, similar to Atlanta, when the belt comes up, when Orion comes up over the horizon, the belt is straight up and down. The belt is straight up, which means Orion itself is angled a little bit, just like it is in this picture. But if you're in the equator, the belt is going to be crooked when it comes up. And if you're in the South America, it's going to be crooked like this when it comes over the horizon. And it's going to happen at the same time in these different locations, pretty close to the same time when it comes up. So they're seeing it the same way. They're seeing the same stars, but they're looking at it. Their horizon is different because they're looking at it from here, here, or here. Here's another thing: the star pattern every night. If you look at the North Pole, and if you took a time exposure camera picture, you just let the exposure go for a long time, it'll pick up the star trails. And this is what the star trails look like in the North Pole. They rotate around the North Star and they go this way. You see that? They go counterclockwise. This is the rotation. This happens every day. All the stars do this. You can just see it plainly if you go straight north, but all the stars make this path. But when you go to the South Pole, guess what it looks like? It's exactly opposite. The stars are rotating clockwise in the southern hemisphere. And the same thing happens with the sun. The sun rotates this way overhead. If you're on the South Pole, it'll go over your head in a clockwise manner. But if you're in the North Pole, it's going to go counterclockwise over your head. So this happens everywhere, everything you look at. Here's another picture of, these are called crepuscular rays. I know we're going long. Do I have a few more minutes, Eva?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Well, these are called crepuscular rays. And they suppose some people think that this proves a flat Earth, proves that the sun is not very far up. If you notice these sun rays, they're actually going in front of the trees. See that? and I've taken pictures like this. I have some pictures. This isn't one I took personally, but I've seen this myself, and you can too if you see the sun through a group of trees, or it happens with other things too. But you notice the rays are going in front of the trees. And people, the flat Earth people say that proves that the sun is not very high. Well, if you're going to use this calculation, if you know geometry at all, you make a triangle. Your triangle is not going to be very big, right? You could calculate the distance to the sun, and it's only going to be about 500 feet up. Are you catching this? You can't use crepuscular rays to prove the distance of the sun, because if you do, it's not very high. You could throw a rock and hit it, or maybe you couldn't throw it 500 feet up. But the ridiculousness of using crepuscular rays to prove the height of the sun makes no sense. Anyway, that's a flat Earth argument, but
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That doesn't make sense to use that.
Especially, and you can actually look at the rays of the sun from above the clouds, and they make a path that's exactly straight. There's no divergent rays, because the reason the sun makes those divergent rays is because it has to hit an obstruction, either a cloud or a tree or a mountain or whatever, something that would obstruct it. Then it splits out and makes these rays. But if you're looking straight at the sun with no clouds, no obstruction, it's just going to be a ball of light. It's not going to have these rays coming out. What happens is the sun hits it, and then it disperses, kind of like a prism. If you shine a light at a prism, it disperses the light in different ways. So that's why you get crepuscular rays. They don't prove anything about the flat Earth. There's a whole bunch of videos on the Earth. So these are some videos you can watch. I have these on a list if you want to see curvature of the Earth math. This is pretty interesting. Accurate curvature calculator. You can go to this website and get the Earth curvature. I have seen the ships disappear over the ocean. One time I was on the ocean. I was in a hotel that had 6 stories, and I went up to the top, and I could see this barge. The cargo ship. You've seen cargo ships with these really high stacked cargo containers. Anyway, I could see it on the 6th level, and I saw it approaching us because I was going up and down, and I was looking at the horizon to see what was different boats. I saw a bunch of boats and stuff, and that would disappear as I went down to the level 1 and looked at the ocean. And then I went up to level 6 and looked at the ocean. And I took note of each location, and these boats would disappear. Well, I remember this one big cargo ship. I could see it on level 6. I could see this cargo ship coming. And then I went down, and on level 1, you couldn't see the ship at all, not even the top of it, none of it. Couldn't see the ship because it was hidden by the curvature of the Earth. But as you go up, you could see it. Another thing you see every day is the sun. When the sun sets, have you noticed that the top of trees and the top of buildings and the top of mountains always have sunlight longer than the bottom of the trees?
Oh, yeah. That? Yes, we live in mountains.
Yeah, that happens every day. You can see the sun shining at the tip of the mountain, and it will stay lit for a long time after you can't see the sunlight directly on you anymore. There's no direct sunlight anymore. It's all hidden. But on the top of the mountain, it's there, and that line goes up. You see the mountain, the sun shine that's shining on the mountain. It will, as sun sets, that sun line, you can see the line where the sun is shining and where it's not. It will go up till it reaches the top of the mountain, and then it will disappear over the top of the mountain because the sun is shining directly, but it's being hidden by the curvature of the Earth. There's a whole bunch of really clear explanations, and this is the sunset calculator. You can go there and get the sunset based on the coordinates of GPS coordinates and find out every location on Earth when the sun sets. Here's more videos. If you watch all of these videos, there's so much information that proves to me. I've watched so much and looked at so much that the amount of evidence to prove that the Earth is a globe is way heavier than the supposed proof that it's a flat. Here's somebody who tries to prove the Earth is flat from the Bible, which I think is a really weak argument. Anyway, there's a bunch of different videos you can go to if you want more information. I know I'm going through this quick, but I can give this document to anybody who wants it. The wind turbines, that's pretty neat. You can see wind turbines in the ocean, and they have these propellers, really big turbines, and yet you can only see the top half of the rotation. And the bottom half would have to be cutting through the ocean if the flat Earth were true, but of course it's not. Okay, well, there's a whole bunch more, but I'm going to just end there. I'm going to stop the share. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Thank you so much. Wow, what a deep study. What time. Thank you for using all this time to study. And I want to ask you the first question.
Sure.
Before we started the meeting, I said, how did you really get interested in this topic? And you said, well, it was a friend of yours which had gone to this flat earth believing. So have you tried to explain to him this study, and how did did he accept it, or?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I explained this over and over again. I sent him videos. I showed him pictures. I showed him my map that I split up, the globe that I split up. I showed him all kinds of stuff, but yeah, he's blind to it, I guess. He just doesn't want to see it. He just maintains that the earth is flat. And when I bring up a thing like the Big Dipper, why does the Big Dipper look like this and like this at the same time? How can that happen on a flat earth? He's like, oh, there's got to be some explanation.
Right.
But he doesn't offer it, he doesn't know what it is. It's just.
So have you heard about this group in Australia? I don't remember this group's name now, but they've been in another One True God Believers group before. And then
Restoration Ministries, I think.
Right. And then a whole group of them, they listened to one of the leaders and they started their own little group, because to me, it seems like they believe it's a salvation question.
Yes. I have watched several of their videos, and that's what they do. They turn it into a salvation issue, that you're going to hell if you believe the earth is a globe. But there's nothing in the Bible that makes it a salvation issue. There's actually nothing in the Bible that actually explains it in detail. I mean, there's things like the ends of the earth, and I don't remember what else, but there's a few verses that they use to try to prove it, but it's totally bogus. Also, if you're familiar with Ellen White's writing, she actually wrote a fair amount on this. That map that I showed you, the Gleason map, that was actually put out by an Adventist during Ellen White's time. This was not isolated. So this was an Adventist teaching that the earth was flat. When I say Advent, a single Adventist person came up with this. Gleason made his flat earth map, which to do that, he had to fill in a whole bunch of earth that wasn't there. He had to make Australia huge and the United States small, because it's just a myth.
Right. So I think it was Isaiah 40:22, where the circle of the earth and circle is the same as a compass. And everyone knows that the compass is round, right?
Yeah. Right.
So so in the north of Norway, they don't see the sun at all in the winter, and in the summer it is 24 hours light.
Okay.
So that shows again that the earth cannot be flat, right?
Right. And especially, well, I mean, in a flat earth that could work as well. What can't work is what I just described today. Is the measurements around the world.
Right.
You cannot possibly have bigger and bigger rings till the equator, and then smaller and smaller down to the South Pole. That can never happen on a flat Earth. Those rings would have to consistently get bigger and bigger until they're extremely huge.
Right. I remember when I was in Australia, when I looked at the moon, in Norway, a new moon looks like a comma. But in Australia, the moon was laying
Yes.
like this. And that was, yeah.
Yeah, that happens every night, like you can. An interesting thing about the moon, it's a crescent. If you're looking at a crescent moon, if you draw an imaginary line through the top and bottom where the crescent starts and stops, if you follow that line all the way up, it will point to the North Star. And that stays that way. So if it rises when the sun or the moon rises in the east and sets in the west, it's going to make a rotation throughout the night because it's going to maintain that direction toward the North Star. So it's going to look like this.
I was just going to try.
It'll look like this when it rises, and then it's going to do this, and it'll set like that, still pointing to the North Star. All the stars do that.
And this is just a probably stupid question, but if they take a boat from the east over to the west, if the Earth was flat, wouldn't it fall off the Earth?
Well, I mean, there would have to be an edge to the Earth where things would fall off. You would think there would have to be some kind of an edge. Now, what the flat earthers claim is that there's a big ice wall, Antarctic ice wall that keeps all the water in, that it's protected by ice. And but then you would think then you could get up on top of the ice and go and find the edge and throw a rock over or something.
And where's
Yeah, there's no pictures of it. Nobody's ever seen this edge of the world.
Pilot has seen it, but he can photograph it,
Right. And when these flat earthers went to Antarctica and saw the sun 24 hours rotating above their heads in a clockwise manner, there's no explanation of that on the flat Earth. And all before they went there, they all were saying it's just fake. We're being lied to. Whoever is telling you that the sun does that in the South Pole, they're wrong. It's not true. But that's when they realized it was true. They saw it for themselves with their own eyes. They're like, okay, I can't believe in the flat Earth anymore, because that completely disproves the flat Earth. You can't have that sun rotation 24 hours in the South Pole, and especially going the opposite direction, counterclockwise. You can't have the sun doing this and doing that at the same time on the same Earth, unless it's a globe and you're looking at it from your perspective. You're still looking at the same sun. It's just you're looking at it from a different direction.
So my last question is, how can it be that when Jesus is coming back, every eye shall see that he's coming in the sky?
Now, that is a really good question, and I do not understand the details, because the Bible talks about the sky is going to be rolled up like a scroll, and so things are just going to be transformed quickly. So I'm not sure how that works. I know that God's all powerful and he can do amazing things, and he can make his coming visible, which he's going to be so bright that it could be somehow he could make it so it'll be visible all around the world, because the Bible does say every eye shall see him. So anyway, I leave that up to God to figure that out. I'm not gonna try to understand exactly how that works, but I know it's going to happen.
I know Brother Shalom, he wanted to have the PowerPoint. Maybe you can send it to me and I can post it out to everyone.
What did you want?
Brother Shalom, he wanted to have your PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah, sure. Now the file's really large, so I'm going to I could upload it to my website and then give you a link and you can download it.
Okay.
Because I can't email it.
Okay. Sounds good. So is there some more questions or comments here?
Yeah, I was wondering.
There was
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
That's okay. I was just going to mention there's on that all eyes will see him. And I put this link in the chat, and I think it's the right link, but it talks about the how Ellen White mentions that there will be the New Jerusalem comes down from Orion, the open space in Orion.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that is the trapezium cluster where that space is, and that's in this article. I believe it goes into that. Pretty sure it does. It mentions basically from any point on Earth, you can see that trapezium cluster.
That's true.
At any point in time. Yeah, so just something along those lines. I mean, I know that, yeah, the sky will be rolled up, but it makes sense that in around Earth, this can be proved that you can still see that one point. Because a flat earther would say that that's not possible. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It has to be flat in order for all eyes to see him, but this can work in around Earth because this is actually proven that you can see this from any point on Earth at any point in time. But anyway,
right.
That was I was going to mention. And then it's interesting that the UN that's whose map they use is the Gleason map. I'm sure you know that.
It's similar to that. The reality is, flat maps don't do justice to the map, to the reality, because whenever you take a globe and flatten it out, like I did with this one, things get distorted. So like Greenland, for example, Greenland's not very big, but on this map, where is Greenland? I take that one doesn't have Greenland, I don't think. If it does, I don't know where it is. Okay, so here's Greenland on this map. See how the size of it is? It's quite a bit smaller than the United States. It's not a very big place. But on a lot of the flat maps, regardless of which one you're using, Greenland looks pretty big. Well, actually, the Gleason flat Earth map, I guess it's pretty small on that one. But what you're doing is you're taking a three-dimensional object, like somebody liken it to if you peel an orange in one piece, you get the peel all together in one piece, and then you flatten that out. There's going to be gaps all over the place. You can't fill it all in.
Thank you, Rick. So, Sister Abigail.
Yes, I don't know. We were about 10 minutes late. I don't know if you dealt with the seasons, the changes in temperature. I know you talked about it just briefly, but do most of the flat earthers, I believe that the Earth is flat, and then there's a canopy over it, like a biosphere, right? That it's covered with a biosphere.
They claim that a rocket hit. Can't.
Oh yeah, a rocket hit the biosphere. Is that what they said?
Yeah.
And made a hole in it?
No, that if a rocket tries to shoot up high enough, it will hit this invisible barrier that will cause it to fall or to not be able to go any further.
So where do they think the satellites, our GPS, all the satellites travel?
A lot of people, a lot of the flat earthers say they're fake and that they're maybe held up by balloons, but they're not actually rotating in outer space. They say you can't go to outer
space. GPS. They obviously don't use GPS and stuff when they're traveling. I don't know. But the seasons are the big problem, real big problem I would have with the idea the Earth is flat. Because we have friends in Australia would go on a Zoom meeting and we're just baking with heat here, in Idaho. We have almost 100-degree temperatures and his pipes are freezing. It's like that couldn't happen with that beautiful little dome over the top. I don't care how big it is. That would not be happening. Not that extremes,
Right. and you are right. It doesn't make sense. Although their explanation is that the sun it changes paths. Sometimes it's going in a small path that centers more around the North Pole. Sometimes it's a bigger path that is able to get over to Australia more. And they claim that is what makes the seasons. But if you have a dome that's holding everything in like that, you'd think the heat would stay in as well.
Yeah, of course. Yes, exactly.
But they claim the sun is not. They claim the sun is not very far away, like 3,000 miles or something. But the reality is, then the sun you would see it the first time you see it in the sunrise, it would be small, and then as in the middle of the day it would be bigger, and then at night it would get small again. But that doesn't happen. Anyway, 99% of the time the sun does the wrong thing for the flat earth. The sun is in the wrong location, takes the wrong path. So some flat earthers claim that we have our own personal sphere that we're able to see, and that it changes depending on where you are. And it's just a whole different sphere. But they also claim the sun is not actually where it is. Like we see it sun set due east at the equinox, or sorry, it rises due east and sets due west on the equinox. They claim that the sun's not actually there. That's just a projection of the sun. The sun is really, really far northeast or northwest because it's doing a circle over your head. It can't be right where it looks like it is. That's what the flat earthers have to say. And I don't know how many people actually logically think through this stuff, but the sun is not in the right place.
Yeah, I wondered about that because I've watched a few flat Earth videos, but I've not watched anything that's the least bit convincing. Especially how do ships? When you just said talking about ships on the different floors, you see them. Yeah, you see them go down. Anyone can see that. We live by the ocean. Anyone can see that, and it's how do they explain that?
Well, they claim that if you get a magnification and you zoom in enough, you're going to see that boat will come back into vision. But that's not true. If I was on level 1, I couldn't see the boat. I had binoculars, and even if I had a huge telescope, I couldn't see that boat because it was over the horizon. It's impossible. Just like you can't see Mount Everest. You can't see Mount Everest 300 miles away. You get the best binoculars or telescope, you still can't see Mount Everest. But if the flat earth were true, Mount Everest is the highest point. You could see it everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, too many things don't make sense on the flat earth idea.
Right.
And I haven't seen a convincing video. Is there any convincing videos out there?
Abigail, you can put your camera on. It's so nice to see you.
Oh, you like to see me, huh? Yeah. Okay.
Just to let you know, I have another Bible study starting in a few minutes.
Oh yeah, we better let you go.
But are there any other questions? Because I know this was brought up by somebody in our last study, and I don't know if they have any questions. If there's somebody who literally believes in the flat earth here, if you have any questions or answers to what was presented. I have never seen anybody answer what I've explained about the sunset times. And if there is an answer, I want to know it.
Yeah, I do too. I want to know the truth. And we do have a good friend in one of our Zoom meetings, and a lot of people know her. And she's very much into this idea. And I don't really understand why.
Well, there's this saying that you take a man out of his field and he's just as ignorant as everybody else. You take a rocket scientist out of doing rocket scientist stuff, put him in a brain surgery location, he's not going to have any information on that. And the fact is, we only know what we've been exposed to. And we only have certain pieces of the puzzle. Now, on this flat earth thing, I have funneled a lot of information into my mind. So I have a lot of information on the flat earth versus round earth. And I have filtered it out to or understood it in such a way that I believe the earth is a globe. And it's overwhelming evidence for me.
Yeah.
But some people don't have the same information because they haven't done the same investigation. I mean, there's literally nobody on earth that has the exact same information that I do on this topic, because they haven't seen the exact same set of information. So I don't blame somebody who believes in the flat earth, because
No, I don't even.
they're calculating their understanding on the information they have, the pieces of the puzzle they have. But I just want to encourage them to get more pieces of the puzzle, because from all the stuff I've seen, which is a lot, there's no possible way the earth is flat.
Thank you. So Terje, maybe you would like to have the closing prayer, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this Sabbath, and that we can come together and study together this way, and from so many parts of the world. And thank you for your creation, and that you the way they ordered it, and it's when we think about it, it's so incredible that everything is so fine-tuned, that if just for example the moon had been missing, then the things it would not be possible to live on this earth. Thank you that you are in the control, and that we can have your full confidence in you. In your Son Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Amen.